joining us today for one of the first federal election roundtable on systemic racism, poverty, disability rights, and legislation here in Hamilton Center. I just want to acknowledge that the partners, let me start off with the land acknowledgement first. The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the District 1 Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Today, we are pleased to have our first session, our debate with Hamilton Center. Regrettably, we have no shows from a number of our confirmed guests. We are candidates. Conservative Party member Fabian Grenning has not shown up, and we have been trying to connect. Unfortunately, no response. They had Fabian's team confirmed with us that we will be on, as well as Green Party's member candidate Afro Weinstein, who's also confirmed that they would be here. They were invited, along with the Liberal Party member Margaret Bennett did informed us that she was not able to join us some time ago. So she was already on the list as not being able to attend. However, we are quite disappointed that our two party members who confirmed that their attendance today or participation in today's debate, a very important one, that they did not show up. And I think it's unfair that we should cancel, and because we do have Matthew Green, who's currently the member of parliament here in Hamilton Center, who has taken the time to show up for this important conversation. So that is why we decided to continue and to share with our audience that invitations have been sent, confirmations were made, and today we have a no-show. So the issue of systemic racism, you have, as an audience, make that decision as to who really values this conversation. And I want to acknowledge, though, that Margaret Bennett from the Liberal did confirm that she could not attend today because of a conflict in schedule. So Matthew, how are you doing today? Thank you so much, Mr. Green, and our MP here in Hamilton Center for joining and to share with us your perspectives. We have a number of questions that we had for you and for all the candidates around systemic racism, around indigeneity, around disability, and so forth. But because the format has changed somewhat, I'm going to allow you an opportunity, 5 minutes or so, to share with us your perspectives on your party's positions on these various issues. You know that the issue of anti-Black racism has been a big issue the last number of years, especially last year with the instance in the States in particular. We do have our own instance here, of course, and we also have the issue of the Indigenous children, the graves being found. We know that these are serious issues. We have a growing issues around mental health. We have COVID recovery. We have businesses are challenged. Women are not participating in the workplace as they used to be as a result of COVID. We have a plethora of issues. We have, issues around healthcare. Given the fact that our invited candidates did not show up, you have the floor to share with us. I'm going to give you 5 minutes because everyone was going to get working with 5 minutes for the opening. So I'm allowing you to, for 5 minutes, you can share your perspective on a gamut of issues around framing it in the context of equity. And also, if an audience members want to send some questions, we'd be happy to take them as well. So go ahead, Matthew. The floor is yours, Matthew Green.
Thank you so much, first of all, through you, Ms. Myrie, to Kojo, and all of the partners who have come together to create this space and to insist that this very difficult conversation of racism, of white supremacy, settler colonialism, remain at the front of the policy debates. I want to, in the spirit of acknowledgement, begin by situating this conversation to how ways of racism and ableism have very personal and direct impacts on people in this country. I think that in the discovery of Kamloops, 215 children recovered, with a national response, with leaders across the country speaking out in that moment, these voices have been silent, I would suggest, as the numbers have grown from 215 to close to 7,000. You have to look no further than the recovery of Indigenous children from so-called residential school systems to see the way in which systemic and systematic racism and genocide occur in the settler colonial context. I want to take a moment and also personally reference with deep sorrow the recent murder of Prabhat Singh, a taxi driver in Nova Scotia, a casualty of a hate crime, a white supremacist hate crime. Joyce Echequan, a casualty of systemic racism within healthcare. Regis Turczynski-Paquette, the casualty of police responses to mental health, inadequate responses to people in crisis. Barbara Kettner, who was struck down by a trailer hitch, another white supremacist attack. The recent London murders of anti-Muslim hate. Obviously, the Quebec City massacre, the tax on hijabi Black Muslim women in Alberta, the firebombing of Ibrahim Jami Mosque. And if you're here in Hamilton, you'll recall the systemic ways in which white supremacy failed to protect, as an institutional response, Yusuf El-Hasnawi, who in his intervention as a civilian was left to die with a gunshot wound. The reason why I wanted to name those instances is to move people beyond the abstract of racism and the way that it manifests itself here in this country, and be very clear that white supremacy kills in this country in so many different ways. And of course, the ways in which systemic, either conscious or unconscious bias is presented and systematic prejudices are enacted here have a increasingly deadly effect on people in this country. I want to take a moment and just reference that this morning I attended the protocol for encampments, a press conference that was held at City Hall, and tie in the ways that disability justice and anti-racism work and work around Indigenous solidarity and climate justice are all interconnected topics. When you look at the response to COVID, we knew by postal code who was going to be most impacted by it, and yet in this riding, a conservative provincial government failed to roll out vaccines in the first phase. We know by postal code the social determinants of health and the way in which poverty has impacted people's, not just their quality of life, but their life expectancy. That in downtown Hamilton, there are areas that have a life expectancy of 61 years of age. And just 10 minutes away in some of our suburban neighborhoods, that rises to 81 years. Racism, in short, kills. Classism, in summary, kills. Poverty kills. Ableism kills. And so when I talk about these issues, I need people who are watching, when they're tuning in, to go beyond the rhetoric and what people say as politicians and see what they're actually prioritizing. And what we're prioritizing is a pathway towards true justice, one that ensures that each First Nations communities has access to clean drinking water, that every person in this country has access to safe, dignified housing, and that the financial supports are provided to people to lift them out of poverty. So we have called for a guaranteed basic livable income that would provide $2,200 a month to people with disabilities and seniors immediately, given the fact that they have been left with meager pensions and social assistance rates, which are so far behind the times that they're actually less now in Ontario than they were before Mike Harris about 20 years ago. So I say these, in a very short summary, to encourage people that are engaging in these topics to not get caught in the statistics, to think about the ways in which bad policy causes harm, and that we must take the precautionary principle to do no harm as a government, and in fact provide to improve the material conditions for people living in this country. And that when we invest in social programs, in climate justice, in housing, in healthcare, we are working to disable settler colonialism, anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Muslim hate, that we are addressing these causes at the root, and we will continue to be committed to doing that. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity just to situate the conversation with the lived experiences of people here in Hamilton Centre and across the country.
Great. Thank you for sharing those perspectives and positions, Mr. Green. And thank you for being here this morning. We have been very pleased to see that Hamiltonians from a variety of organizations through the Afro Canadian Caribbean Association, of which I'm the president, along with the Hamilton Centre for Civic Inclusion, the Justice Network of Ontario, as well as the Hamilton Legal Clinic, Hamilton Anti-Racism Resource Center, and Hamilton Students for Justice, and McMaster University School of Social Work have come together to organize these sessions to bring the voices of the candidates to the people to speak to these important issues that we cannot afford to have being sidelined. So I want to thank you for the opportunity for you to be here to share those perspectives. And I want to thank the organizers who have just identified for the vision they have to bring this conversation to the square. I'd also want to remind our audience that there is a second session. There are a number of sessions. The next one is tomorrow, which is the 10th of September already. We have Philomena Tassi, Bert Laranjo. We have the NDP candidate, Roberto Enriquez, and we have Green Party's candidate, Victoria Galei, who will be on for tomorrow. And that will be moderated by our partner from the Hamilton Legal Clinic. And just to remind our audience as well that the candidates who are running in this Hamilton Center, in those who did not show up, I described them already, named them already. We have Kevin Barber. In addition, we have Kevin Barber from the People's Party of Canada. We have Nigel Cherian, who is the Communist Party of Canada, and we have Natalie Yan, who's running as an independent candidate. So those are the candidates running in Hamilton Center. I want to take this opportunity for thanking you, Mr. Green, and thanking the audience for being a part of this event today. And we look forward to engaging all the candidates throughout this election. These are important topics, and if those who attend other sessions, be it online like we have organized, but certainly want to encourage you as an audience to ask these questions of your candidates. What are they doing? What will they be doing to address issues of hate, racism, anti-Indigenousness, as well as issues around disabilities and mental health? These are key questions that we need to have answers. So please share those when you go to whatever platform you use to get your MPs to respond to these concerns are very serious in our community and indeed across Canada. Thank you again for being here, and I look forward to continued engagement with all the candidates. Have a good afternoon, Mr. Gray.
Thank you very much for having me on.